Our next presenter is Lauren Schroeder. Lauren lives in Dixon and attends Calamus-Wheatland High School. The title of her project is Garden Donations for Nonprofits.
Hello, I'm Lauren Schroeder, living on a small farm in Dixon, Iowa. I attend school at Calamus-Wheatland High School in Clinton County. My project is growing produce on an acre plot, then donating to organizations in eastern Iowa and western Illinois. When I say I grow produce, I grow a lot. Before I get started about my project, I wanted to show you a short video that was released 1 year ago this week. Enjoy!
Tonight, the teenager and her gift for so many families this Thanksgiving. America Strong. Tonight in Dixon, Iowa, outside Cedar Rapids, a teenager and her incredible gift this Thanksgiving. 17-year-old Lauren Schroeder has been growing vegetables in her own garden, a lot of them. Green beans, cucumbers, potatoes, and so much more. Planting, watering, harvesting them. Now, just 1 week from Thanksgiving, she has given it all away to families, to nonprofits in the region. She started with ½ an acre on her family's corn and soybean farm, eventually growing to a full acre, with help from the future farmers of America. And tonight, the numbers. She grew 716 pounds of squash, 972 pounds of zucchini, 2,400 pounds of pumpkins.
Please start her time over again.
Yes.
Yeah.
The teenager and her gift for so many families this Thanksgiving. America Strong. Tonight in Dixon, Iowa, outside Cedar Rapids, a teenager and her incredible gift this Thanksgiving. 17-year-old Lauren Schroeder has been growing vegetables in her own garden, a lot of them. Green beans, cucumbers, potatoes, and so much more. Planting, watering, harvesting them. Now, just 1 week from Thanksgiving, she has given it all away to families, to nonprofits in the region. She started with ½ an acre on her family's corn and soybean farm, eventually growing to a full acre, with help from the future farmers of America. And tonight, the numbers. She grew 716 pounds of squash, 972 pounds of zucchini, 2,400 pounds of pumpkins, more than 7,000 pounds of food in all, donating it all to families who will benefit from 8 nonprofits, including the Riverbend Food Bank.
Lauren's donation has helped out a large number of area food banks. Not only does she provide food to those food banks, but she also sets an example.
And right here tonight,
Hi, David.
Lauren, that young farmer on giving.
Seeing people's reactions when I drop off the produce is pretty great. No matter who you are or where you come from, you can make a difference.
No question, Lauren. Love what you've done. I'll see you tomorrow. Finally tonight, the teenager and her gift.
That was pretty amazing. How this came about was a local news station interviewed me about my project growing produce. Once he aired my story, news stations from all over the country called me, my family, and my school. Now, let me tell you about my story. I am in year 3 of my project, which has grown every year. Over the 3 years of work, I started with ½ an acre plot, watering, harvesting, and donating produce for consecutive years to nonprofits, investing roughly 1,500 hours into my project. Now you may be wondering, why did I start this garden? Back in COVID-19, when I was in 8th grade, needing Silver Corps hours for graduation, I was volunteering at a nonprofit packaging boxes. As I kept packaging these boxes, I realized there was no fresh produce. These boxes only contained cereal, canned goods, and toiletries. This was when I decided I wanted to make a change. I asked my parents to convert some farm ground to a large garden, and they said yes. Year 1 marked out an acre plot of my family's farm ground down the road in the spring with fencing. My family did this on purpose because I wasn't able to drive yet. In order to make sure the plants would be ready to transfer in the spring, I used my family's greenhouse in March, and my school's greenhouse in March. To fund my project, I applied for a $1,000 National FFA grant. Got it, then used it for expenses such as seed, chemicals, and watering cans. I ended up producing 15 different varieties of produce, donating 8 nonprofit organizations, totaling 2,511 pounds. Second year, I proceeded with the same process of planting plants in the greenhouse in March. I will say one of my challenges I faced so far in the greenhouse was it got too hot and ended up frying all of my plants. My FFA teacher felt awful, and the school refunded me for my plants. I kept a closer eye on this to keep in mind for next year's planting season. My FFA chapter also fixed the problem by fixing the cooling system. Back to year 2. Funding my project again, I applied for another $1,000 National FFA grant and won. River Valley Co-op heard about my project and volunteered to come out and soil test my plot. The soil was rich, making it a perfect place to grow produce. In addition to soil testing, they also donated $750 to a nonprofit of my choice. I split the check, donating to 3 nonprofits in need. At the end of harvest season, I produced 25 varieties of produce to 10 nonprofit organizations, totaling 4,458 pounds. Since you saw the national news playing in the video in the beginning of my presentation, here's what happened in my 3rd year. I proceeded to plant plants in the greenhouse in March. To fund my project, once again, I applied for a $1,000 National FFA grant and won. This was pretty impressive because at my school, I was the first person in my FFA chapter to win 3 grants in 3 years. I planted more seeds in year 2, but incorporated double cropping with plants such as lettuce, cabbage, and broccoli. I planted a little over 35 different varieties of produce. I ended up donating to 11 nonprofits, totaling 5,120 pounds. By the end of the year, I was selected for many awards, and companies wanted to help donate money. Throughout the years, I kept the same process of starting plants in the school's greenhouse in March, and would end harvest season in October with pumpkins. Over time, I kept incorporating different plants, whether that be different types of plants, or completely new plants like peppers and radish. I also kept in contact with the nonprofits, asking specifically what they would like me to donate. I wanted to make sure what I was donating would not go to waste. On the screen, you are seeing different types of produce I am growing, such as tomatoes, onions, squash, you name it. Year 1, I started with 8 nonprofits, and this year I expanded to 11. These consist of nursing homes, churches, women's shelters, and soup kitchens. Some new organizations I donated to in my 3rd year were River Bend Food Pantries in South Park Mall and Nest Cafe in Illinois. Now that I know that I have impacted thousands of people so far. I've talked about how much produce I donated and how many nonprofits I donate to. This table sums it up in one spot. As shown throughout the years, I kept track of a spreadsheet of all the crucial information. Throughout the past 3 years, I had a total of roughly 12,000 pounds of produce donated with a value of $25,000. I've added at least 1 more nonprofit each year, hoping to reach my goal of 12 in 2025. One thing that I thought was special besides donating produce was the amount of money other companies and organizations have awarded me with for my selfless project. I chose to take that money and give it back to where it's most needed. So far, I have helped donate $4,258 to special nonprofits of my choice, being the Carrollton Assistance Center in Wheatland, Family Resources in Davenport, and Cafe on Vine in Davenport. Not too long ago, I was awarded $2,500 from the Hormel Top 10 Under 20 Food Heroes to give to a nonprofit of my choice. I split this check in half, Being with my 4-H chapter since 4th grade, I wanted to give back to kids who had an opportunity to do more activities because they were low on funding. Once again, I also chose Cafe Online as my second choice. This project has taught me many valuable lessons like horticultural knowledge. I helped my mom in the garden. Knowing what I know now about weeding, chemical use, and planting certain plants has made it much easier. Media skills when interviewing for any position that may come my way. I have been interviewed on podcasts, newspapers, TV shows, and live panels. This photo here is me being interviewed by Kelly Clarkson and will be on her show again in January for my project. I also help set goals and knowing I can accomplish them with hard work and dedication. Multitasking from day to day, I am a teenager who likes to play sports, show livestock, and hang out with friends in the summer. Finally, record keeping has helped me with anything in the future. I feel like I relate to Herbert Hoover because in history books, he was called America's hungry hero and feeder of the world. This is exactly what I'm doing by growing produce and giving back to people in need. Second, he called himself a simple Iowa farm boy. This really hits me because the Washington Post and the New York Times interviewed me. I remember describing to themselves as a simple Iowa kid. So far, from the past 3 years, I've hit some pretty big accomplishments. To put some facts into perspective for you, I was able to donate enough tomatoes to make 600 batches of spaghetti sauce. I harvested 37,434 green beans. I donated 572 jalapenos and enough zucchini to make 2,500 loaves of bread. Because people saw my dedication to give back to the community, they wanted to say thank you. Before I knew it, I had letters from all over the U.S. saying how proud they were that the younger generation is helping those in need. I know I've inspired thousands of people because they have told me. One touching story I remember is the second year of my project when I was dropping off produce to a women's shelter in Davenport. Normally when I drop off, it would always be an employee. This day there was another woman with the employee. She was living at the women's shelter and wanted to meet me. She came crying to me because she used to garden. She used to make these dishes with numerous of vegetables, but because of the situation she was in, she could not anymore. When she saw me delivering this produce, she burst into tears because it helped her when she could provide for her children and make healthy meals. I will never forget that. Finally, one of the soup kitchens I donate to preserves the items in bulks, like tomatoes. They freeze them, and so they can be used throughout all winter. I like to donate to them in large bulks because the produce will not be thrown out because it has gone bad and is truly being used every single year. So what's next? I will graduate in May, heading straight to the University of Northern Iowa into the medical field. I chose this type of work because I wanted to help people, but in a different way. I will continue to keep doing my garden in the summer of 2025 with a goal of 18,000 pounds donated to 12 nonprofits. I'm grateful for these opportunities I have for my story to be shared throughout the country and to show off my hard work by giving back to the community just as Herbert Hoover did. Thank you for your time.
That's awesome. So how many volunteers do you have to help pick, or how do you plant all these vegetables and then harvest them? I mean, I assume you're not doing everything yourself, but.
No, I would be doing this project by myself over half the time. I have my family, who are my helpers, that would come, but that's it. It's just me and my family.
Oh, thank you.
Really amazing thing that you're doing, and so you're going to continue it through next summer. Is there anyone who will take over doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so my brother, who's in 7th grade, he will continue to do my project. I've also inspired people from my school, so my science teacher, Mr. Drowns, he said that he wanted to start growing produce in the greenhouse throughout the winter and then have the school donate the produce because of what I've done, because it has shown how big of an impact it has had so far. So when I graduate, he wants me to come back and show the people at the school what to do and exactly where to go for these nonprofits.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to know the process of counting that many green beans. What does that look like? Are you just counting each one by hand and keeping a tally?
Yeah, so I do count them all, and then I have a spreadsheet that I have, so each year I have a spreadsheet that converts everything from the Hy-Vee prices, that's how I know how much produce in money wise I have donated. Otherwise, the pounds and stuff, that's how I keep track. Yeah, just with those green beans, I do count them all by myself. Same thing with each of the other produce, I count it all by hand, just like the cherry tomatoes, and then each tomato, just to know exactly how much produce I've donated.
Awesome. And then as you're adding new kinds of produce, because I think you said you're up to like 25 different types now, how are you learning to grow those different things? Is that your family helping, or what does that process look like as you add new items? as
So
needs
I
grow?
asked the nonprofits which type of vegetables, so for example, Community Action in Eastern Iowa, they're a nonprofit I donate to. They asked me specifically to grow herbs and to donate them to them, so that's why I've been doing these past 3 years. Otherwise, it's just the internet that's been helping me learn how to grow these different produce because I haven't asked anyone else what to do besides Mr. Downs, my science teacher, who's very knowledgeable about the greenhouse.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.